So yes, Texas Department of Transportation, TxDOT, please do not ask me about I-35. I do not have any information to share with you all about why it is taking so long or anything else. Contact the Austin District Headquarters to get more information about that. As far as within that, it always comes up. But the title of my session, What's Strong, as far as not what's wrong, really a new mindset. And so in lieu of the introductions, I kind of talk about myself really through this lens, right? And so really the main thing I talk about, and I'll tell you, is that I'm a sneaky innovation spark plug. It's sneaky, it's all good. I use my sneakiness for good, never for evil as far as within there. My strengths, my top 5, because we're talking about strengths as far as within there: ideation, achiever, relator, competition, and command. I've worked in all these industries. Really great industries, everybody's good and everybody's crazy in all of the industries as far as within there, because it's just people, right? People being people. Have all these certifications. I won't talk as far as and speak to them, but I think one of the things that's been really good here today is we've gotten a lot of different tools. And I have those different certifications because I want to speak to somebody how they want to be spoken to. And I recognize, hey, this may be good for you, this may be good for you, whatever works for you. Long as it works, that's all I care about as far as within this. So whether it be a different tool or whatnot, that's what I like to be able to take a look at. But I am a Gallup Clifton Strengths coach certified as far as within there. And then finally, I am an avid sneakerhead, just not Nikes. I do have a couple pair, but you won't see me waiting out on a Saturday for a new release. That's crazy to spend $200 and to wait like 5 or 6 hours for a pair of shoes. It's just crazy to talk to me. And I am a pen connoisseur. So if you give me a pen, you're like, oh, sign this, and it's a big, I'm probably gonna look at you a little weird. I have my pens here. It's just me, don't pay me no mind. I just have a special thing as far as with pens. But really my main thing here, and that sign there, and you've seen it by Toby on there, I do believe that a leader or anybody has more impact on you than even your doctor. So having a good relationship with your leader who honestly cares, who honestly wants you to be there, has much more impact on anything else. And so for myself and other leaders, that's the lens that I want them to think of. And when I think about that, it really comes to these things. So we're gonna spend this time here talking through these very quickly today. We're gonna talk about talent growth and development. We're gonna talk about strengths. Hence, I'm a strength-based coach. That's what we'll talk about. We'll move into appreciative inquiry, and there's a relation there, and then hopefully we have some time for some questions, hopefully. We're gonna get through this quickly. So when we look through this lens and we talk about talent development and what that looks like. So according to ATD, they're efforts that foster learning, employee engagement, talent management, employee development to drive performance, productivity, and results. It also talks about, when we talk about talent growth, is all the aspects of talent development because it's multifaceted. It's all about individual skills, mindset, potential that helps them thrive really professionally and personally. And I'm really big on mindset because the mindset for me controls everything. I don't even think about your actions. I can tell what your mindset is. So as a new leader, even in my own role, I am actively trying to figure out what are individual mindsets because I know that is driving their behavior more so than anything else. So at TxDOT, we have this nifty, what we call our talent growth model, and it's listed there as far as on that page for you. But one of the things we've been thinking about today, right, that main thing is know who you are, right, which kind of coincides, not coincidentally, it just is what it is as far as within there, but really knowing who you are. Knowing all the things that make you up, knowing as far as from your triggers, knowing all the things that make you matter. The second thing when we talk about your talent growth as far as is exploring your options. A lot of times we were talking earlier and Brian was like, yes, and that's really a good place to be because sometimes we get kind of fixated of, hey, this is not working, I get stuck here, right? I'm stuck in this place and I have to be able to explore what my options are. The third piece, really after we've gone through that, how do we set goals? How are we gonna get to where we wanna get to when we explore our options? And finally, the most important one, right? How we take action, right? But the first part is knowing yourself and knowing how that comes into it. So I have a nifty little exercise that we're gonna do to be able to do that. So when I talk about knowing yourself, I say, how do I identify what I do best? So we're talking about today investing in you, but a lot of times as talent development professionals, we don't really sit and think like, what do I do best, like in this role, in this area? What do I do best? What do I do that's different than my other team, than my other, as far as counterparts, than my other leaders? What are the things that I do that people are like, gosh, you can just do that and it's just amazing. And you're like, oh, I just do this. And they're like, no, you really have to do it because the other person can't do it that amazingly. How can I use my talents to accomplish what is most important to me? I think a lot of times in our speakers, and I've seen the theme today about purpose, right? What's my purpose? And your purpose all should be different than my purpose. But how do I use my talents to get what's important to me? And then what makes me unique? What makes me different from everybody else? So we're gonna do this little exercise very quickly. On this nice little page right here, you got all this blank space, right? Everyone, hopefully you have a writing instrument as far as with you at some point. I know we're in the digital age, but I'm taking it back old school, back into that paper and that pen. So here's what I want you to do. Very, very quickly, I'm probably gonna give you about 15 seconds. I want you to write your name as many times as you can on this page, right? It's very simple. Ready? 1, 2, 3, go.
First and last.
First and last. I'll probably do it to 20 seconds to go. Looking like you're about to be close. And time. So what do we look like? How many did we get?
2.5.
2.5, 5, 3. Did anybody get 6, 4? Okay, perfect. We got that place. Now I'm gonna have you do it a little differently. I want you to put that pen, pencil in your non-dominant hand. And now we're gonna try it again, right? So we got it in our non-dominant hand. Now we're gonna go one more time. Let's go around 15 seconds. Here we go. The chuckles already. All right, time. That time went quick, right? It went quick, all right? So let's talk about the difference between exercise, the first part of the exercise, and the second. What happened there?
Uncomfortable.
Uncomfortable, okay. What else?
Not used to it.
Not used to it, okay.
Thought of the second writing my non-dominant. Took way more thought.
Take one more thought, right? And so this is the lens I want you to think about when you think about your strengths, right? I didn't tell you which hand to put your pen in. I just said, write it, right? And you said, okay, I'm gonna do it. The only real friction, laughing, chuckle, I'm uncomfortable, happened when I told you to do something that you weren't natural within, that it wasn't necessarily your strength. And so that's really the lens when we talk about strengths, right? The things that you do naturally that you don't have to think as far as within there. Now, we can talk a little bit later if you wanted to get to that level. What would it cost you? Like if you wanted to write in the same way of your non-dominant hand, what would it cost you? And would you be willing for what it actually costs you to do it, okay? So the case for strengths really is about building strengths, right? We understand and recognize as far as if we spend time looking and focusing on our strengths, that we gain more. That's just the reality. If you look at anybody who's ever been in athletics, as far as any sort of thing, you review the things you do well over and over again. That's what you look. You do look at game film to look at the other things, but you generally look at your stroke or your shot or your form to repeat it over and over and over again. You do it for that reason. The key is we're really trying to build on who we already are. I'm not trying to deviate or go off script. Just trying to be able to play in that level. And then we also know that the biggest way that we do this is by identifying your individual greatest potential. And we all have them as far as within there. So these are a couple of things. I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time there in your packet, but when we talk about it in the lens of talent and development, one of the things is I think we talk about it from facilitation, right? We all have different ways that we come at it if we're trying to be a facilitator. I'm not trying to be like, I was talking to Roderick person there, he knows my former boss, and he's like, oh, I love Chris, right? I like Chris too. He facilitates completely different than me. And it works for him, and this works for me. And so we have to focus on what our strengths are as far as within there. We talked a little bit today about building trust and psychological safety, but it really does help to create an inclusive environment where everybody can be who they are. If we think about it from instructional design, I really think about it from the lens of having that different place. One of the things talking about, like what we were talking about, the 4 C's within the clarity, but there's certain people when they're talking about instructional design that they're really good at that clarity. You probably want them leading it at that first part of that design stage or that really defining stage to kind of do it. But if you don't know those strengths, you probably don't want me as much at the start of it, because my ideas are probably going to take you all off scope already as far as within there. It is what it is as far as with it. Then we can talk about some different things as far as if you're a training manager and being able to recognize and understand your team's strengths, understand as far as depending on the operation, who does what well, and how we can leverage those strengths. All cases as far as to be able to do it. And then finally, if we're talking about operations, which kind of flows in the training manager, but how you collaborate with others in your organization. How can you bring those on? Can you create not only a culture, but create a place where strengths are appreciated as far as within there? And then how you design systems that scale by aligning with strengths. So I've been talking a lot about strengths, but I want to kind of take a little step back and talk about talents. Because we talk about talents and strengths, and they're really in the same vein, but they look a little bit differently. So some of the things that you have for talents are things that you just do instinctively well. I can handle this conversation well. I can think in order. I can make processes happen. I just do those things well. I can see patterns in data. The reason why this is so important is that a lot of times, and I was literally having a conversation with my boss because she was talking about her son, and he's 13, and he's in this comparison stage with everybody in school. And I was like, wouldn't it really be good if we could just look at and teach kids to be able to look at their strengths and say, this person's strengths different than mine, and what they bring to the table is just different than what I can do. Not good or better, just different. But the reality is that everybody is truly a genius. We're all geniuses in our own right. But if I'm trying to be a genius and let's say being the tallest person ever, it's not gonna happen. I got blessed with 5'2", that's it. Stilts maybe help out, ladder, all those things, I can do it, but it's not gonna happen. And so this quote's been thrown around from a couple different people. I don't know who it lands on, so I don't know who to give credit to, but everybody's a genius. But if you judge a fish by its ability to climb a tree, it'll believe its whole life that it's stupid, right? And there's a lot of things that people go into, jobs, organizations, working, and they feel misplaced. They don't feel like they're in the right place, and they're probably not, because they haven't aligned and understand what their strengths are so they can really add value to the organization in the best way possible. So what are strengths? We talk about this, but it's really how can I do this over and over and over again and well? It's not just about, and I hear this a lot about people talking about strengths, is like, oh, I know that person's strengths and that's okay. When they say that, I know they don't get it, because strengths is really about appreciating it. If I know my strengths, I should appreciate my strengths. And then I have also the same space to appreciate others. So what's the difference between appreciating and tolerating? Because I think that's a good place to play. If I appreciate your strengths versus I tolerate your strengths, what does that look like?
Value what their talents are.
Value, okay. What else?
Appreciate I can grow from it. Tolerate, I don't care. I'm not trying to grow it all.
Exactly, right? But how many times do we go into situations where we tolerate versus appreciate? Right? I tolerate Miracle Whip. I don't really like it. I don't appreciate it at all. I like mayo. I tolerate it, but that's really what it comes down to. And so we have to go in there with our mindset of, I'm going to appreciate others and what they do. So investments, you're asking, why is this here? So that first exercise I had you all do, you had your non-dominant hand and your dominant hand, right? So what do you think it would cost you, or what would you have to invest to get your right hand or your non-dominant hand to be in the same place? So we had 6, then you had far less as far as within there. What would that cost you? How much time, energy, effort? What do you think?
To make our non-dominant hand dominant? Years of practice.
Years, okay. So if you had that, is that worth that investment? Maybe, maybe not. It all depends.
If you lost your dominant hand, it would
Oh,
be.
yeah.
If you did, it would be, right? And it's all circumstantial as far as within there. But if you didn't want to do that, that's what it comes out to. And so when I talk about talent and I talk about strengths, I really talk about it from that level. What your natural talents are, how you want to invest into those talents to get to your strengths. Because you said, hey, I could get my non-dominant hand in the same way, but that would cost me a lot. And sometimes for people, you don't have that time or you don't have that energy. And it would be much more served for you if you could invest your time and your energy into your talents, invest that in there to get to your actual strengths. But I want you to think to this week that you've been here outside of this conference, because this conference, you get to invest into yourself. How much investment have you done in yourself this week, this month, right? And so we're talent development specialists. We go out learning and development. We pour into others. How much of that have we invested in ourselves and our strengths? Because I agree with Mr. Buffett. He has a lot of money. Somebody asked me one time who I wanted to be. I said, I would love to be Warren Buffett. Because Warren Buffett could walk in the airport. You wouldn't know him as far as from anything. He's not on any blog or anything else. He just in his best brown suit, living his best life with his old shoes on. That's who I want to be. I want the money. I don't want the fame, right? The best investment you can make is an investment in yourself. The more you learn, the more you'll earn. So the more you learn about yourself, the more you can earn as far as within there. So some other benefits. So people who focus on their strengths are 3 times more likely to have an excellent quality of life. They are 6 times as likely to be engaged in their jobs, and they're about almost 8% more productive. In this world where we're penny pinching everything, I'll take any little percentage to be able to leverage as far as that up. And it all points to people being happy, engaged, and really productive in their job, which is all wins from an organizational standpoint and from a personal standpoint. So here's what we're gonna do. And some of you may already have it and it's already good as far as in there. On this page is a strengths discovery place. Now you already know your strengths, you can write them in there, but these are some general ones. And so I use these because I am Gallup certified, but the real is you don't need to go through Gallup to be able to get to your strengths. You already may know them. So I'm gonna give you about a couple minutes and I want you to circle 2 or 3 that really resonate. Now I know y'all are all high achievers and somebody will just start circling them all, and that's fine, but we're gonna go to another exercise that we'll do it. So I want you to take a look at this, give you about a minute, circle 2 or 3, and then we'll go to the next part. All right, so you spent some time and you've identified your top 2 or 3 strengths. Here's what I would love for you to do. You're gonna answer these 2 questions, and then we're gonna create space. And so if you don't have friends in the room, we're gonna make some friends in the room and we're gonna do a little bit of sharing, all right? So the first question is, I want you to identify one of your strengths that you circled there that you love. And I want you to describe what do you appreciate about this strength. And then the second is, if you can take the one that you love, or you can take one of the other ones, it doesn't matter to me, how do your strengths show up in the training and development world? All right? Questions, concerns about that? So I'm gonna give you a couple moments just to write it out, and then we'll create space to share. All right? All righty, it looks like most of us are getting closer to it. So here's the thing, we'd love for you to find as far as a new room buddy, and just as far as pairs, 3, whatever you wanna do, but just have conversations kind of around that. I'll give you about 2 or 3 minutes. I'll tell you when you should switch, and just have conversations about what you found out as far as within identifying some things. All righty, we'll bring it back to the larger group. A lot of good conversations. I would love to keep them going. So how was it? I felt like the energy went up in the room. How was that for you all? Good. Can you tell me what was good about it? Interesting, okay.
So it's very validating because, we want to think these good things about ourselves, but then when you say it to someone else and they say back, oh yeah, I see that in you. It's like, wow, I guess that's what I am projecting.
Yeah, absolutely. Validation, appreciation, being able to see that reflected, all of those things that we want. And so when we talk about strengths, it's really about, for the first piece, how can I create a shared language, right? That we can be able to talk, communicate, and be able to say it in that lens. So when we talk about that, and we're not moving forward, there we go. But I haven't talked about, but what about weaknesses, Shannon? You've been talking about all the strengths, but what about it? So here's the thing. The first thing is to recognize them. The yes and works here as far as within there. Yes, I do have these, and this is how I'm going to navigate them. And I can navigate them by minimizing them, right? If I can avoid working in those areas and being able to do that, that works as far as having a strategy. I can collaborate. If you're really good at this and I'm not, I can collaborate with you. Or if you really love it, like I have a friend and she loves Excel. I call her the Excel gangster. She loves it. She nerds out on it. She's like, ooh, so giddy. I can care less because it's going to take me 4 hours and I'll do the research and I'll get it, but it'll take her 30 minutes. So if you would love to do that, I will pass that on to you. You can hand this over to me and we are both happy as can be, right? I can apply one of my strengths. Sometimes I have to do that. I'm high in the ideation, right? My ideas have ideas, and the way I temper it, because I could go crazy as far as within there, is the achiever, right? I utilize that strength because, like, Shannon, you got 100 things here. That's not going to happen. How can we get to the 5 that actually I can achieve and make something impact? That's really what I have to do as far as in that. But it goes. I do have a notepad with all my ideas as far as still there. Just can't achieve them as far as right now. And then finally, I told you I'm not a Nike sneakerhead, but sometimes it just matters. You just have to do it, right? You just have to do it and be able to lean in as far as into that process. That's all in that place. And I spent a lot of time here because this is the individual piece, right? This is about my strengths and that's how I do it. But once we start to have it for ourselves and we want to create it within an organization, we move into appreciative inquiry here. And I'll spend a little bit of time as far as kind of navigating what this all looks like, right? So we already have our strengths foundation, right? We understand it, we appreciate it, we're talking about a shared language. Then we're gonna go through the process of how it ties into the organization, right? Because we spent this time individually, but I know we work for organization and what's the ROI? How does this help me at all as far as within doing it? And we go into a strategic impact, right? So when I think about appreciative inquiry, it's really the same thing that we talked about for strengths-based development, right? It's about how I look at the organization for what it's doing well and leverage that and use that as my tipping point to move forward, right? So it's really the same mindset shift from let's focusing on what's wrong to let's focus on what's strong and leverage that to kind of bridge that gap. So this bridge and this pillar kind of comes as far as within this. So the foundation I already told you about, we identify our core strengths. The next thing is to define. We clarify our purpose and our strategic goals. Then we go to discover. We identify our strengths and our peak experiences. Then we talked about this, the dream part, and we envision what this bridge or what we're trying to take a look at and be connected to. Then we actually go into that design phase of how we're gonna build it, how we're gonna create the systems and the strategies. And then finally, we get to our destiny, what we're gonna do, what's gonna be that final piece, which leads us to our designation pillar, which is our strategic impact, that our strengths are connected to what we do well, to the organization goals, and we're leveraging that in that way. Most of our organizations, so I come from a government organization, this next year in February, we'll have our survey of employee engagement, right? We'll have that, we have it every single year. It's gonna look a little different as far as with some things going back into it. You know what it is what it is. But how can we take anything that we get on those results? What are our strengths? How can we leverage that in that way? Some of it will be able to impact everything? No, but we'll be able to impact a lot of different things as far as with that. How much time I got left? Got about 10 minutes, all right. So how it really works, it really focuses on learner engagement. So again, how learners engage in your organization, really built upon the culture and how it just works. Every organization works differently. It really focuses on having a growth culture. We don't spend time in just focusing on the weaknesses. We talk about our strengths, and we use our strengths to minimize that as far as for growth. And then we talk about sustainable change. The reality is it will always change. It will be in this VUCA state forever. We are never getting out of it anytime soon. So we have to be able to adapt as far as with it. And we can adapt by using our strengths when things come up. So I'm going to go through this quickly because I want to get to this final exercise here. But when we talk about it in the lens of this is a high level of it. I'm going to get into the training and delivery part because it'll make a little bit more sense. So when we talk about the define part, right, we're going to clarify the focus. So when you think about it in our training and development world, we identify development areas that you want to enhance. So maybe it's a leadership development program. Maybe it's onboarding. Maybe it's collaboration. We can think about, hey, how do I want to create a leadership program that really builds on what we do in an organization? Like, what do we do well as an organization, and how do I kind of leverage that? Then I explore how it works by, I can use interviews, surveys, storytelling. You understand your organization, what works well, to be able to try to capture, hey, what's already working well? So in our survey employee engagement, we can see the results. Hey, this is what people are saying. This is working really well. How do I go and capture more information about this, whether it be people have a real good sense of trust? So let me tap there and figure out how to leverage it, right? I can gather stories from high-performing team, as far as from other people in the organizations that make the learning experiences impactful. That's really the main case as far as within there. Next thing, I go to dream, right? Imagine the ideal future as far as here. I'm good here in the ideation stage as far as within there, and people have to tell me to kind of pump the brakes. However, this is the best part, because you're trying to figure out what it can be. And a lot of times we talked about in the first session with Esther, talking about assessments and assertions. And we have these limiting thoughts and these ideas about this, even from a talent development standpoint. And so that's a really good place to think about the assessment piece of it and what it could be. Not what, as far as all the bad, like what do you know about it? And what could be the wildest, the craziest thing that you have? Now, sometimes in the organization, there's things that, okay, those are boundaries, we have to limit it, but sometimes things can be so much more than you could ever think about. And I'll give you a classic example. So we're working right now to have a, what we call an education dashboard. Right? And so we have all these education programs, but want to be able to have it so people can see where people are going to school, all those things. And so I was thinking about it really for an ideation person. I was kind of on my low bandwidth that day, really streamlined. And we had one of our Tableau people, and he was like, you know, I can connect this to this and this and this, and I can actually connect it to the school and the data rates and when people actually pass and the passing rates and how all those times. And I was like, oh, you can do that? He's like, oh, yes, like it can be like you guys are thinking here, it can be much bigger than that. And I was like, thank you so much, because it's really that's the stuff that people will want. Like, hey, if I'm thinking about going to school here, you know, does it have as far as veteran benefits? You know, what is the pass rate as far as people going for bachelor's and master's and all those things? And I was thinking from a very narrow place, and that person actually opened up the door for me to dream even more as far as about it, all right? When we're in the dream stage, I will say the dream and the design stage, one thing that I will say here is think about what the maintenance looks like and what the after effects is like. Because a lot of times we get to that discovery, like, oh, it's great, and then we can't figure out who's doing what, who's actually going to have to keep this thing like going, like after we do it. Think about it here, because you can design it here. But if you wait till you get to the end, then it's no, you got it. No, are you doing the maintenance? No, I'm not doing the maintenance. I don't want this. Like, you have to think about it now as far as within there. Design the path forward. You know, create, for this example, we can co-create learning strategies and tools. We can do strength-based coaching, whatever it looks like, peer learning, digital learning paths. Build whatever you want that destiny to be, whatever that end goal is. And then finally, the destiny. Embed it into your organization however it works. It works differently in all organizations, but you can, for us, we started to introduce regular strength check-ins. We have them in team meetings. We're filtering it through our organization as applicable, but really what that end destiny looks like. How much time I got? 4 minutes. All right. So I won't be able to get to it all, but here it is. It's an exercise for you. So on this page here, and you can do this later at any point in time, because I won't spend that much time and we don't have that much time to go into it. But really, what I want you to do is to do this for yourself as a talent development professional. So how it looks like is, the first part is, I want you to think about your professional development and what it means to you. And then in one sentence, I want you to define what a thriving professional development journey looks like for you as a training professional. So we're going to go for the define part. The second question I want you to answer is, recall a moment in your career when you felt most alive, effective, and proud as a training professional. What were you doing, and what were the strengths that you were using? That will take us through the discover stage, right? Then we'll get into imagine if it's 1 year from now, not right now, but we're going to visualize into the future, and you've grown significantly in your role. What does that look like, and what are you doing differently or better? Because that'll take us through the dream part. And then we'll go to that back page, in which we'll say, what's one action? I want you to think about it after you do this in the next month that's going to move you closer to that dream. What do you need to be doing to focus on that, right? What support or resources might help? And then finally, to your destiny, how will you stay committed to this growth path? What habits or mindset will help you sustain it? That's really this. It's the same process. You can do it individually. You can do it as an organization. It doesn't really matter, but it's all in that focus as far as within that. So this is my homework for you all, for you to take for yourself to really get you in that same place of appreciating you through inquiry. So if we go through all those questions, that first slide that's here, we had a chance to know yourself. You can start to begin, if you go through that process, to explore your options. You'll set some goals right there in yourself. And then the last piece is really for you and how you take action and what you want to do. So we sneakily get to go through this whole experience within those 5 questions. All right? What questions and concerns do you have for me? Because I'm getting close as far as to our time. What questions I can answer for you all? If you want to, if you have anything, I'm here until 4 o'clock. Otherwise, just want to tell y'all thank y'all. I appreciate y'all for being here. If you want to connect with me, that's my QR code. It is also on the back of this too, so you don't have to, as far as utilize it. But I appreciate your time, your energy, and just being in the space to be able to learn from you all. I also appreciate my wife coming down as far as in the room and showing up as far as with it. It always matters as far as to be loved and appreciated in that way. And she has to deal with all my wild, crazy ideas, so y'all pray for her. Thank y'all. Appreciate it.